Hey, thank you all for being here. Appreciate it very much. Our thoughts and prayers are with our fellow Oklahomans who lost property and or loved ones last night. We've got Senator Jett is in Pottawatomie County traveling around to the damage right now, and Senator Garvin was out late last night with first responders just trying to see what we can do. We've had a member on staff here who experienced quite a bit of loss last night. So just thoughts and prayers with our fellow Oklahomans as the loss last night of both property and life, and open it up to any questions you may have.
Got one more week before the next deadline, I think, if I'm
You're right.
mistaken. What are the priorities that you still want to see through, or what do you want to see the House take up of yours that hasn't been dealt with?
You know, I'm still hopeful. I've been talking a lot with Representative, this is on a personal level, not caucus level, but Representative McIntyre and I have been talking a lot about the Choosing Childbirth bill and trying to make sure that we open that up so where the money gets to where it's supposed to go. We've been dissatisfied with the progress that the current third-party private administrator has been doing, and there's been an internal audit at the Department of Health. That's kind of a little bit of a nuanced one, but I'm very passionate about making sure those dollars actually go where they want, so I'm watching that one really closely.
I saw you and Senator Pugh walking down the stairs. Don't know where y'all went, but assuming maybe second. Did y'all have any another negotiation meeting today?
We're just walking around the Capitol, man. Appreciate you. No, we met with the governor a little while ago, but we have conversations with the governor and the speaker at all the time. Had a lot of discussions on education this week with our House counterparts and some with the governor, and still trying to find a path forward there.
Is this education package? I know education's the huge part of the budget. Is it kind of holding up other budget negotiation items?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt, it's taken the oxygen out of the room. At some point, if we can't find a pathway to success on the education thing, we may just have to abandon that and move on to the other budget things, and we're prepared to do that if we have to do that.
How do you know when you've reached that point when you have to abandon?
You know, if we don't see any movement for an extended period of time. In April, we've all been here long enough where April's always contentious or typically contentious. We try to not make it personal, and then we'll hopefully start getting ready to wind down everything in May. And so I was hopeful this week we'd have more progress than we have had. But still trying to, in good faith, get somewhere.
It's a budget-intensive item, the education discussions, and I have been told from across the rotunda that Senator Thompson had not been in a lot of the education discussions specifically. I think it's maybe been you, and maybe sometimes Senator Pugh, and maybe some other people. Is there a reason for that? Is that standard, or is there,
Yeah, I chose a different group of people. Roger's integral to the team, and Roger is one of the most trustworthy senators we have out here. I've been consulting with him on where can we go, what is the sustainable amount, but I haven't been tying him down in those daily negotiations.
even though the rest of the budget really can't, get completed until
It can't, but subcommittee chairs are still meeting with people, still trying to winnow down, still meeting with their counterparts. We're not having official budget negotiations on other parts until we get that moving, but there's still, if you know Roger Thompson or Chuck Hall or any of those people, they are continually meeting with people to try to fine tune those subcommittee budgets.
Is there I know the speaker has been increasingly just kind of not willing to compromise on a lot of things, and same on both sides, everyone has their side that they want to see through. Is there a way that the budget is, we get right up to the deadline and maybe not meet? Is that possible? What happens? Is there a fear of that maybe? Because I know tax cuts is a huge thing for them.
Yeah, I've never, this is my 13th year in the building, we've never not passed a budget, and so I'm not fearful of that.
Where are we at on tax cut discussions? Maybe you saw part of the governor's presser last week in which he says we have $6.2 billion in savings, which is a little bit of a shifty figure, and calling for 3 different tax cuts. And then I hear the House is also trying to tie tax cuts to some of these economic development deals.
Yeah, we were very clear, especially on the economic development, that we wanted to stand on its own. We sent a letter of support on the project with the whole leadership team signing on, awaiting the signatures from the other parties, I believe. The other parties being the governor and the speaker. It's the last I knew of it, at least. We're willing to have conversations, but once you have while you still have education standing out there, we know we have $1.1 billion more for FY24 than FY23 as far as certification goes. But it would be unwise for us to spend right at that, and it would be definitely unwise for us to spend over that. And what we have been sent from our counterparts well exceeds that, and so we're just winnowing down on what's possible. And until you get that chunk, the education chunk, figured out, it's really hard to say one way or another on other areas.
Yeah, I was going to jump in. I mentioned standalone topics, and it kind of made me think of what the Democrats said today. They came out with a joint education plan. They're talking like the Senate and the House should divorce the education tax credit from the issue of teacher pay raise and school funding.
Yeah.
Just consider them separate. Why not do that?
Well, they want to kill school choice, the Democrats, and so I understand why they're trying to take that position. I didn't see their press conference. I heard Senator Hicks say that a week or two ago, but the conversation right now is that we're trying to get education taken care of, regardless of if it's given by a private or a public school. So, just have no.
On the economic development stuff, I know.
Are you wearing a Nirvana shirt, by the way?
Yes.
That's awesome. That's what
He's ready to get the cups out.
He's ready to start playing.
Yeah.
On
The Unplugged album's the best.
Reese, real quick, can I ask one on education since we're just.
You just cut him off.
I forgive him.
Well, before we get back, can you talk about whether one piece or another has had more or less progress in negotiations, specifically tax credit and school choice component versus the questions over the funding formula, the $300 million that the House wants to put in that's capped at $2 million? My understanding is maybe that has been less. There's been less willing to compromise on that component of how that money flows than the other parts, or what would you say?
You know, although I've expressed a desire several times to have these meetings in open air and with press and public welcome, no one has taken me up on that yet. And so until they do, I'm not going to share their position on it. We've had discussions on all the above.
Would you be open for a Trace moderated debate? When you get the ball?
Sure, absolutely.
On the economic development side of things, the governor said basically that Project Josie now is, which is Panasonic, I think Commerce confirmed it. So Panasonic really won't come to Oklahoma. It's contingent on the legislature passing an extra $245 million. I get the sense from members of the House that there's not much desire to pass that $245 million in extra spending. What is your caucus feeling on that?
You know, when we talked about the Project Connect, that was part of the arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
It was not part of the predecessor, the Project Ocean, and so it's a topic of discussion that we have not advanced very far on the Senate side of looking at that, because again, it's another $245 million when we've got anywhere from $640 to $800 million and beyond on education looming. Granted, that's one-time money. If we do it the way that we did Ocean, hopefully we can land economic development. Hopefully we can come to compromise. If there's a non-negotiable, we don't react extremely well to non-negotiables.
You said personally feeling you said that you don't want to spend over that $1.1 billion. Obviously, there's a lot of spending coming down the thing. Do you think that $245 million is something that the legislature should fund?
That's a very good question that I don't know if I can answer whether or not we should, because I feel like when I speak on this, I speak on behalf of my caucus, and the caucus has not taken a position on that yet.
With the 245, the agreement that was struck, the 7-page agreement that Commerce released, which there was frustration in your caucus that it was released, given to me for some reason randomly versus before it was given to
Yeah.
Senator Thompson. But I guess my question is, if you look at the contingencies in there, it says the $245 million is to be used to the benefit of the company, the terms and the agreements of the company. And then it also notes that Panasonic's board, the final contingency, they don't have to vote until December 31st, 2024. So they're trying to get you to commit this extra 245 in the next month or so, and they don't have to vote for 18 months. Does that muddy those waters?
Yes.
Does your NDA still apply now that Project Ocean has signed, or Panasonic has signed a contract with?
I don't think the NDA would apply to the agreement they signed with Commerce, because the NDA I signed before was about Project Ocean. As you all know, I'm not an attorney, but I would think that since it's in the open air now, that NDA would be non-applicable.
Put out a press release on it.
Do what?
Panasonic put out a press statement.
Oh, okay.
Saying that they're
Yeah.
considering coming to Oklahoma.
I can't imagine that it would still apply then.
What do you think of the governor presented some numbers last week on his tax cuts and how much they would save the taxpayer, but also how much it would cost the state? The numbers were non-annualized, so you'd have to double it. Is that number and loss of revenue, if those pass, is that concerning?
Taken in context of everything, yes, we can't afford everything that he outlined. And so I was a little surprised that he pivoted right to taxes on that. Although I didn't watch the press conference or the press availability, someone told me the tax part, although it was all the graphics and the boards, that was made up a small part of the overall press conference. But obviously, there's a hard line at 1.1. You can't spend more than you take. Me personally, and the team think it's more prudent to spend less than the 1.1 billion you have, just like we have in recent years. It's led to our record surplus that everyone wants to spend now. One year during the height of COVID, we spent 78% of what we were authorized, and we've spent in the high 80%, low 90%. I think that's a good precedent to set in a state, especially when you see the ebb and flow of oil and gas revenues. Our oil and gas revenue stabilization has helped a little bit. Not a little bit, quite a bit. But we don't want to be unwise and just spend it all.
You've got, Nervia, were you about to speak?
I was gonna
I was
ask
looking down, I couldn't see.
No, that's fine. If you don't mind returning to the education package, specifically the school funding, half of that. One thing that Speaker McCall has said publicly that he is willing to budge on is, although the $2 million cap is non-negotiable to him, maybe to alleviate those concerns, he's willing to put more money into the funding formula. Is it fair to say, from the Senate's perspective, that putting more formula funding in, making this package more expensive, is not going to sufficiently alleviate your concerns on that half of the package?
Yes, there is a certain amount, and we haven't delineated exactly what that is, but obviously we took an $800 million package and made it about $640 once you do career tech and DOJ and all that. OJA, not DOJ. Yes, if the answer is just spend more without any commitment that we're not going to spend anything else this entire year, that's just unsustainable.
I spoke with Speaker McCall today, and I asked him about the veto override. He said right now they have no plans to vote on an override, and that he wants to sit down with the governor and talk about what his plan is for that $600 million. What did the governor express any of his plan to you about what that $600 million is? What was his reaction to the veto yesterday? And do you think he has a plan for the $600 million?
The governor and I have just talked generically about the money in the past, about Healthcare Authority money in the past, no specifics. Others on the Healthcare Authority board, I think, had delineated a plan, maybe with the blessing of Secretary Corbett. and had outlined some things. Many of them are worthy, but they need to go through the vetting process of appropriations. I think had the veto message not been so aggressively worded and offensive toward the legislature, you may have seen us not react as quickly and try to sit down. But when you read the veto message saying about imprudent and that all the savings is because the executive branch's wise fiscal maintenance and just slamming the legislature the way we took it, what was offensively inaccurate, as I put in the thing, and I stand by that.
We good?
Thanks, sir.
Yeah.